Right then, let me ask you something proper important, yeah? What if I told you that everything you're chasing right now, the promotion at work, that relationship you're desperately trying to fix, that happiness you reckon is just around the corner, what if all of it, every single bit of it, is built on a massive lie you've been telling yourself? Sounds a bit harsh, innit? But stay with me here, because today I'm going to tell you the story of a bloke called James Mitchell from South London. A man who had absolutely everything on paper, but felt like he had absolutely nothing inside. And through his journey, we're going to unpack one of the most transformative books I've ever read in my entire life. Life's Amazing Secrets by Gaur Gopal. But this ain't going to be your typical book summary, mate. Nah, we're not doing that boring stuff today. We're going to live it. We're going to breathe it. We're going to watch James fall apart and then piece himself back together again. And I promise you this, by the end of this video, you'll see your own reflection somewhere in James's story. So grab yourself a cuppa, get comfortable, and let's get into it, shall we? Now, if you're new round here, welcome to the channel, mate. We take life-changing books and turn them into proper stories that actually stick in your brain. None of that boring PowerPoint rubbish. Just real stories, real lessons, real transformation. And today's story? It's absolutely mental. In a good way, obviously. Right, let's meet James. Picture this, right? It's 7:30 on a Thursday evening, November. Absolutely chucking it down outside. Proper grey and miserable, like London always is this time of year. James Mitchell, 34 years old, is sat in his BMW 5 Series in the underground car park at Canary Wharf. He's been sat there for 47 minutes, mate. Just sat there, engine off, staring at the steering wheel. His phone's been pinging non-stop. Slack notifications from the office, WhatsApp messages from his mum, a voicemail from his girlfriend Sophie that he can't bring himself to listen to. James has got what most people would call the dream life, yeah? Senior strategy manager at a massive investment bank. Pulls in about 95 grand a year plus bonuses. Got a lovely flat in Greenwich. Drives a proper nice motor. Takes holidays twice a year. Marbella in summer, skiing in Val d'Isère in winter. On Instagram, his life looks absolutely mint. But sat here in this cold, dark car park, James feels like he's drowning. See, here's what nobody knows, right? His relationship with Sophie is hanging by a thread. They haven't had a proper conversation in weeks, just logistics about who's buying milk and whose turn it is to take the bins out. His best mate from uni, Callum, had a baby 6 months ago, and James hasn't even been round to meet the little one. Keeps saying he'll sort something soon. He hasn't called his mum back in 3 weeks. She's getting on a bit now, lives up in Sheffield on her own, and he tells himself he's too busy. And at work? Despite the fancy job title and the fat salary, James feels like a fraud, an absolute imposter. Every morning he puts on his suit, walks into that glass tower and pretends he's got it all figured out. But he hasn't got a clue, mate. Not a bloody clue. And tonight something properly cracked inside him. His boss, this absolute weapons-grade muppet called Richard, had torn James apart in a meeting. In front of the entire team, made him look like a right idiot over a report that had a few minor errors in it. And James just sat there and took it, didn't say a word, just nodded and apologized. That wasn't even the worst bit though. The worst bit was when he caught his reflection in the boardroom glass afterwards, and he didn't recognize himself anymore. Who was this man? This hollow, exhausted shell of a human being? What happened to the lad who used to stay up till 3 a.m. playing FIFA with his mates? The one who had proper dreams about traveling the world and writing a novel? The one who used to actually laugh, like properly laugh until his sides hurt? Where did that James go? So there he sits, in the car park, in the dark. And that's when his phone rings. It's his mum. For some reason he can't explain, he actually picks up this time. James? Love, you all right? You sound a bit off. And for the first time in years, James is honest. No, Mum, I'm not all right. I don't think I've been all right for a very long time. Now, James's mum, Margaret her name is, she's one of those proper Yorkshire women. You know the type. Salt of the earth. Doesn't mince her words. Been through a lot herself. Lost her husband to cancer about 8 years back. Had to rebuild her whole life in her late 50s. But she did it, didn't she? Somehow, she found her way through. And down that phone line, Margaret can hear that her boy is struggling. Really struggling. So she says something that's going to change everything. Listen, love, I'm going to send you something, all right? A book. Now, I know you're going to roll your eyes because you've always thought my spiritual stuff is a load of old waffle, but just humor your old mum, yeah? Read it. Actually read it. Promise me. James sighs. He's exhausted. He's got no fight left in him. Fine, Mum, I promise. 3 days later, a brown package lands on James's doormat. Inside is a book with an orange cover. Life's Amazing Secrets by Gaur Gopal. James picks it up, ready to chuck it on the pile of unread books by his bed that he tells himself he'll get round to eventually. But then he reads the subtitle, How to Find Balance and Purpose in Your Life. Balance, purpose. When was the last time he felt like he had either of those things? So that Sunday morning, while Sophie's at her yoga class and the flat is quiet for once, James makes himself a brew, sits down on the sofa, and opens the first chapter. What happens next is going to take us through the 4 fundamental wheels of life that Gaur Gopal writes about. And through James's story, you're going to see exactly how these principles actually work in real life, not just as fancy theories in a book. The first thing that hits James, and I mean properly hits him, is this concept Gaur Gopal introduces early on. Your life, right? It's like a car with 4 wheels. Personal life, relationships, work, social contribution. And here's the crucial bit, yeah? If even one of those wheels is flat or dodgy, the whole car wobbles. Doesn't matter how flash the other 3 are, you're going to have a bumpy ride. Most people, Gaur Gopal says, only focus on 1 or 2 wheels. Usually work, let's be honest. Maybe relationships if they're lucky. But the personal wheel, the one that's about you, your inner peace, your self-awareness, your actual relationship with yourself, that's the one everyone ignores. And James reads this bit that absolutely floors him. You cannot give to others what you haven't cultivated within yourself. He reads it again and again. All this time, he's been trying to be a good boyfriend for Sophie, trying to be a good son for his mum, trying to be a good employee for his company. But when was the last time he was good to himself? When was the last time he did something just because it made him happy? Not because it looked good on Instagram. Not because it would impress someone. Just for him. He genuinely can't remember. Now, Gaur Gopal talks about this thing called the gratitude practice, right? And I know, you've probably heard this a million times. Be grateful, count your blessings, blah, blah, blah. But here's how he frames it that makes it actually land differently. He says most of us are walking around with what he calls destination addiction. We keep thinking happiness is somewhere else. I'll be happy when I get the promotion. I'll be happy when I buy the house. I'll be happy when I find the perfect partner. And then we get those things, and guess what? Still not happy. So we set another destination. It's a never-ending treadmill, mate. James thinks about his own life. His flat, his car, his salary, his girlfriend. He's got everything 20-year-old James dreamed of having. But 34-year-old James is the most miserable he's ever been. Because he's been chasing destinations instead of actually appreciating the journey. So James tries something. Feels a bit daft doing it, but he tries it anyway. That night, before bed, he writes down 3 things from that day that he's genuinely grateful for. Not big things, little things. 1. that his coffee this morning was actually decent for once. 2. The way the light came through his kitchen window at breakfast. 3. That a colleague had said, "Nice work," on an email he'd sent. And something weird happens. For the first time in months, James falls asleep without that heavy, anxious knot in his chest. It's not magic. It's not instant transformation, but it's something. A tiny crack of light through the curtains. Now, as James keeps reading, he gets to the section about relationships. And this is where things start to get properly uncomfortable for him. Gaur Gopal talks about this concept he calls the 3 S's of relationships: selflessness, sacrifice, and service. And James is reading this thinking, bloody hell, when was the last time he was genuinely selfless with the people he loves? When did he last sacrifice something for Sophie without expecting something back? When did he last serve his mum, his mates, anyone, without it being about his convenience? Then he reads something that literally makes him put the book down for a minute. Gaur Gopal writes about how most relationship problems aren't actually about the other person. They're about our own expectations that we've never communicated. We expect people to read our minds, to know what we need without us telling them, and then we get the hump when they don't deliver. But that's not fair, is it? Nobody can read minds. Nobody knows what's going on inside your head unless you actually open your mouth and tell them. James thinks about Sophie, all those arguments they've had lately. What were they actually about? The dishes? The bins? Whose turn it was to cook dinner? Nah, none of it was really about that stuff. It was about James feeling unappreciated, feeling invisible, feeling like he was just a flatmate with benefits rather than an actual partner. But had he ever told Sophie that? Had he ever actually said, "Soph, I feel like we're losing our connection and it scares me"? Of course he hadn't, because that would require being vulnerable. And James doesn't do vulnerable. James bottles it all up, puts on a brave face, and pretends everything's fine. Until it very much isn't. That evening, Sophie comes home from work, and normally James would be on his phone, barely looking up, maybe a grunt of acknowledgement. But tonight, he does something different. He puts his phone down, actually looks at her, and says, "Soph, can we talk? Like, properly talk? There's some stuff I need to say and I think you need to hear it." Sophie looks surprised, then worried. "Is everything okay? Are you breaking up with me?" No, I've been reading this book and it's made me realize I've been a proper rubbish partner lately. And I want to fix that. But I need to tell you what's been going on in my head. The stuff I've been too scared to say." What follows is the most honest conversation they've had in 2 years. James talks about his anxiety, his imposter syndrome at work, his fear that he's turning into someone he doesn't recognize. And Sophie opens up too, about feeling lonely in the relationship, about wanting more quality time, about her own struggles with her career that she never mentions because James always seems so stressed. They talk until 2 a.m, order a curry, sit on the sofa properly cuddling for the first time in months. It's not perfect, they're not fixed overnight, but for the first time in ages, James feels like they're actually on the same team again. The next morning, James does something else. He calls his mum. Not a quick, "Hi mum, yeah, I'm fine, busy at work, speak soon" call. An actual proper conversation. Asks how she's doing, talks about dad a bit, books a train ticket to Sheffield for the following weekend. "Love," Margaret says, sounding a bit choked up. "I don't know what's got into you, but I like it." Now, quick pause here, yeah? If this story is resonating with you, if you're sat there thinking, bloody hell, this James bloke sounds a lot like me, I want you to do something for me, all right? Smash that subscribe button if you haven't already. We drop content like this every single week, proper stories that actually make you think about your life. And if you're really getting value from this channel, consider joining the membership. It helps us keep making these videos, and you get access to exclusive stuff that we don't put out for everyone. Right, let's get back to James's story, because things are about to get even more interesting. Now, James's personal life is improving, yeah? His relationship with Sophie is on the mend. He's reconnecting with his mum. But work? Work is still an absolute nightmare. Every Monday morning, that familiar dread settles in his stomach like a brick. The Sunday scaries hit different when you properly hate your job. And that boss, Richard, still being an absolute tool, still making James's life misery. But here's where the book takes James somewhere unexpected. Gaur Gopal doesn't just say, follow your passion, or quit your job and travel the world, like all those Instagram motivation accounts. Instead, he talks about something way more nuanced, the difference between your external environment and your internal response. See, you can't always control what happens to you at work. You can't control if your boss is a prat. You can't control if the company is chaotic. You can't control office politics. But you can control how you respond to it all. And this bit really gets James thinking. Gaur Gopal talks about this concept of detachment from results. Not detachment from effort. You should still work hard, still give your best. But detachment from being emotionally crushed if things don't go your way. Most of us, when we don't get the promotion or the recognition we think we deserve, we fall apart. We take it personally. We let it define our worth. But what if you could give 100% effort and then just let go of the outcome? What if you did your best work not because you needed external validation, but because excellence is just who you are? This completely rewires how James thinks about his job. He's been killing himself for approval from Richard, from the senior leadership, from anyone who might notice him and validate his existence. But what if he just stopped doing that? What if he focused on doing work he was proud of, regardless of whether anyone else noticed? James starts implementing this. He stops obsessing over whether Richard likes his reports. He just makes them the best they can be. He stops checking his emails at midnight, hoping for praise. He does his hours, does them well, and then clocks off. He stops comparing himself to colleagues who seem to be climbing faster. He focuses on his own path. And something weird happens. The job doesn't change. Richard is still Richard. The company is still the company. But James's relationship with the job completely transforms. He's not angry anymore, not bitter, not resentful. He's just doing his bit, giving his best, and then leaving it at the door when he goes home. A few weeks later, James is in a meeting where Richard is being his usual difficult self, having a proper go at someone about something minor. And James watches his colleagues tense up, watches their anxiety spike. But James just thinks, this is Richard's stuff. This isn't about me. I don't need to carry this. And for the first time ever, he doesn't feel that crushing weight on his chest. He's still in the same room, same job, same boss, but he's a completely different person inside. Now here's where the book takes James to his deepest transformation. The fourth wheel, social contribution. And this is the one most people skip entirely, right? I'll worry about giving back when I've got enough for myself. But Gaur Gopal argues that this thinking is completely backwards. He tells this beautiful story in the book about the difference between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. Both are fed by the same river, the Jordan River, but the Sea of Galilee is full of life. Fish, plants, wildlife everywhere. It's abundant. The Dead Sea? Nothing lives there. Completely barren. What's the difference? The Sea of Galilee has an outlet. Water flows in and water flows out. There's circulation. The Dead Sea only takes in. There's no outlet. It just accumulates. And that's why it's dead. James reads this and something clicks. His life has been all about accumulation, getting more money, getting more status, getting more stuff. But when has he ever let anything flow out? When has he contributed to something bigger than himself? Not since uni, when he used to volunteer at a youth football club on weekends. He'd completely forgotten about that, how much he used to love it. Helping those kids learn the game, seeing them score their first goals. Where did that version of James go? So James does something a bit random. He signs up to be a mentor at a local charity that supports young people from disadvantaged backgrounds who are trying to get into the finance industry. Just a couple of hours a month, nothing mad, and he's paired with this 19-year-old lad called Marcus from Hackney. First generation to go to university, studying economics, dreams of working in the city, but has zero connections or guidance. James looks at Marcus and sees himself, 20 years ago, full of potential but no roadmap, and something ignites inside him. James starts properly investing in this mentorship, reviewing Marcus's CV, doing mock interviews with him, introducing him to people in his network. And here's the thing that surprises James most. He doesn't feel drained by it. He feels energized. For the first time in years, James is excited about something, actually looking forward to his mentoring sessions, thinking about Marcus's future with genuine care. One evening, after a particularly good mentoring session, James is walking home through Greenwich Park. Sun setting, autumn leaves everywhere. London looking properly beautiful for once. And James has this overwhelming moment of peace. He stops walking, just stands there, and he realizes this is what was missing. Purpose beyond himself, contribution to something bigger, using his skills and experience to actually help someone. Not because he gets paid for it, not because it looks good, just because it matters. 6 months later, Marcus gets an internship at a top investment bank. Not James's company, but a good one, proper opportunity. Marcus calls James absolutely buzzing. "I can't believe it. They said my interview was one of the best they'd seen. And that's because of all our prep sessions, man. You changed my life, James, for real." James hangs up the phone, and for the first time in longer than he can remember, he cries. But they're good tears, meaningful tears. He matters. Not because of his job title or his salary or his postcode. He matters because he made a difference in someone's life. So let me paint you a picture of James Mitchell. 18 months after that night in the Canary Wharf car park. Same bloke, same name, but almost unrecognizable from who he was. His relationship with Sophie? They're engaged now, got married last spring actually. Small ceremony in the Cotswolds. Nothing flashy, just the people who actually matter. They communicate properly now, date nights every week. Actually talk about their feelings like proper adults. Is it perfect? Course not. They still argue sometimes, but they argue well now. They resolve stuff. They don't let resentment build up. His mum? James goes up to Sheffield every month now, stays the weekend. They've got proper close again. Margaret keeps joking that she's got her son back after years of him being lost in that bloody London. He even reached out to Callum, his uni mate. Met the little one, she's walking now, absolutely mental, proper cute though. They play five-a-side on Thursday nights with some other lads from back in the day. James has mates again, actual friends. People who have dinner together and take the mickey out of each other and remember birthdays. Work? James doesn't work at the investment bank anymore. Nah, he handed his notice in about 8 months back. Now he's head of operations at a smaller financial consultancy. Took a pay cut, but nothing drastic. Better hours, nicer people. He actually enjoys going in most days. And Richard? James heard through the grapevine that he got pushed out in a restructure. Couldn't happen to a nicer bloke, really. But here's the thing. James doesn't feel smug about it, doesn't feel vindicated. He's genuinely moved on. Richard was just a chapter, not the whole book. And the mentoring? James is still doing it. Taken on 3 more mentees now. Thinking about starting a proper program, actually. Something bigger, more structured. Help even more young people break into industries that can seem impossible to crack without connections. He's got purpose, mate. Real purpose. Not just ticking boxes and collecting achievements. And you know what James says when people ask him how he turned things around? He says it started with a book his mum sent him. A monk's wisdom about 4 wheels and balance and contribution. But really? It started with that moment in the car park when he finally admitted he wasn't okay. When he stopped pretending and started being honest. That's where transformation really begins. Right then, here's what I want you to take from James's story. Number 1, your life is built on 4 wheels. Personal, relationships, work, social contribution. If any of these are being neglected, you're going to wobble. Take an honest look at your own life right now. Which wheel needs attention? Number 2, happiness isn't a destination. It's not waiting for you after the next achievement. It's available right now, in this moment, if you actually pause and appreciate what you've got. Start a gratitude practice. Yes, it sounds cheesy. Do it anyway. Number 3, your relationships will only be as healthy as your communication. Stop expecting people to read your mind. Have the scary conversations. Be vulnerable. It's terrifying, but it's the only way through. Number 4, detach from outcomes, not from effort. Do your best work because excellence is who you are, not because you need someone else to validate you. That's freedom, mate. Real freedom. And number 5, find something to contribute to beyond yourself. Help someone. Give back. Let something flow out, not just in. That's where meaning lives. Now look, I'm not saying this book is going to magically fix your life overnight. James's transformation took 18 months. It's still ongoing. But it started somewhere. It started with awareness, with honesty, with a willingness to change. And that's available to you too, right now, today. You don't need to hit rock bottom like James did. You can choose transformation before the crisis. So maybe tonight, before you sleep, ask yourself honestly, which wheel of my life is wobbling? And what's one small thing I can do tomorrow to start balancing it? That's it for today, folks. If this video helped you see your own life a bit more clearly, let me know in the comments. Tell me which part of James's story hit home for you. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message right now, maybe someone who's struggling but putting on a brave face, send them this video. You might just change their life. Right, I'm going to leave you with one final line from Gaur Gopal that I think sums everything up perfectly. The world we live in is a reflection of the world that lives within us. Fix the inside, and the outside takes care of itself. Thanks for watching, everyone. See you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, yeah?